every word we've been saying since we've been together, since Tuesday, every word, first the one day on emptiness and dependent arising, then about the delusions, blah, 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 blah. Every second we're listening, and this is what practice is. Right this second you're practicing. Right that second you hear it, and you're attempting to see if it makes sense. You're attempting to put meat on the bones, isn't it? That's the idea. And so all we can do then, I mean, all we can do is keep repeating it. So probably this weekend, we're going to be repeating every single word we've said this on Tuesday and Thursday and Friday as well. Anyway, because what else is there, you know? So the answer to how do you practice something? Here, it's easy to see the difference, isn't it? It's very easy to see. Oh, I forgot the prayer. Didn't I say the prayer? I didn't say it yet. Did I say the prayer? I didn't. No, I forgot. So have the words up again. And we'll do our little aspiration, setting ourselves in the right direction. Right, okay, this one down there, the taking refuge. And we'll do it in English. So it's saying, I go for refuge. This is for those of us who do already feel like we're Buddhists, so we're reiterating our reliance. So I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And then we're thinking our motivation for doing this action, by the merits, by the virtuous karma we're creating, just from listening to these teachings, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. That's bodhichitta. How amazing. So I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. And by the merits I create through listening to the teachings, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye chadang soke chongnam la jancho badu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chonyen gipe sonam ki drola penche sangye drupa shog. Okay. Have the prayer. There we go. There we go. Great. I can see you all now. Let me see who's here. I'm just looking to see who's here. Charmaine, Andrea, Bobby, Jimena, Victor, Betty, Claire, Carol, Barbara, many people. Tony, two Tonys, Michelle, Carol, again Carol. Someone got two windows. Katie, Claudia, wonderful. Charmaine's got two windows. It's very tricky. That's so interesting. Okay, wonderful. I'm very happy to be here with all of us. So, okay, it's easy, isn't it? When you see the recipe for a cake and you start with your hands making the cake, it's really not confusing. You can really see the difference between thinking about, listening and reading and then putting your hands on. That we can see it's easy not to get confused. You don't ever confuse, you never sort of learn all the recipes and then pronounce that you're a cook. That's how idiotic, isn't it? And then someone says, oh, make me a cake. Oh, no, I can't do that. You never sort of learn all the musical theory and read the music beautifully and then can't put your finger on the note. That's absurd. So it's easy to see the difference between the theory and the practice in things, simple things like this. But it's tricky because here we're talking about the mind. So the theory is in the mind, but the mind also practices. So it's much harder to see the difference. It's so much harder. And often, and because we're so dissatisfied, because we have attachment, which is a bottomless pit of neediness that never feels full, then unfortunately we bring that to our practice. And even if we've been doing it for 30 years, we say, oh, I'm still hopeless, I'm still angry, I'm still no good, I still can't practice, I still only know the theory, and we get so depressed. We're really, 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 really missing the point. We're really being very brutal to ourselves. So, there's levels of knowledge. It's very obvious. You know, we hear in the teachings, they have this word realization, don't they? A realization, you know? It's a wonderful word, but it's incremental. It's incremental. It's not as if you suddenly have the theory and then instantly you're playing Bach. There's a gradual, agonizing, slow, organic process, you know? So the whole process is practice, and starting with listening, starting even knowing the theories. And I find this pretty powerful. You listen, you know? It seems to me, if any body of knowledge, no matter how big or small, if it is a body of knowledge, not just like a random series of instructions about something, and unfortunately, that's how we think about spiritual. We never think of spiritual as a whole body of knowledge. We never think of it like that. We don't think of it as coherent. We think of it just, oh, you do this and you have this and you meditate, you get an experience, and it's all kind of potluck, you know? We don't really have this view, but if you think of it as a whole body of knowledge, and with absolute certainty, that's what Buddhism is. It's an entire view of the universe, you know? So whether it's cooking, Buddhism, acupuncture, music, you think about this. If it is a valid body of knowledge, this is so obvious, but we don't join the dots here. If it is a valid body of knowledge, if it's valid body of knowledge, it's got to be first coherent intellectually. This is a very important point. You know, you could study acupuncture. You could pass your exam in acupuncture. You can be the top theorist in acupuncture. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't even have to put a single needle in anyone to know the theories about acupuncture. It's okay, you've got to practice finally, but the point is, if that is a valid body of knowledge and you know the theories intellectually, you will see that it's coherent. Every time you learn another theory, that'll join the dots to another theory. And then you'll say, oh, now I understand that piece. And now I understand that piece. The whole map comes together. That's how any body of knowledge would be. You start off with all these random bits of weird information and you can't see the connection. But as you go along, and that's absolutely the certainty with Buddhism. But we have to be humble and patient, you know. And that's why we obsess in our culture in the West. We think practice is on your cushion. And we think the rest is just intellectual. Intellectual, therefore we kind of put it down, you know. But that's completely absurd. Even listening is practice. But if you leave it at listening, you're ridiculous. If you leave your acupuncture at theory, if you leave your recipes at theory, then you're nonsense. But that's the major point. So we've got to go from there and then want to internalize it, want to experience the truth of it, want to understand it. And that's gradual and incremental. And we have to learn to be very humble and delighted with our progress. And that's our biggest problem. It's part of our biggest problem. Yeah. So what are we trying to practice? What are we practicing in Buddhism? This is where it really becomes very confusing for us as well. Because we're so addicted to thinking that practice is something you do on a cushion with the lights low and the incense going and your eyes closed. And I am being sarcastic, but we really do obsess with that. We think that's practice. No, it's not. Not the only one. In fact, half the time we sit on our cushion, we're not practicing. We're just having a nice feeling or thinking we should have a nice feeling. It's just total nonsense. So what are we trying to practice as a Buddhist? Well, the only way to understand that is if we understand the Buddhist view, which we've been talking about these last days, is how Buddha's saying that what goes on in our mind at the moment, we've got lots of good stuff that's reasonable and valid. Love, compassion, wisdom, kindness, generosity, they're the source of our happiness. They are valid states of mind because they're relatively speaking in sync with reality, relatively speaking in sync with dependent arising. Let's prove that they're valid, they bring happiness and they help us help others. Wow. The other ones, and this is Buddha's point, ego grasping, all the misery, the attachment, the anger, the 83,997 other ones, the Buddha points out, that these are also states of mind, but they're invalid. This is very hilarious. We talked a bit about this yesterday. To think that anger is invalid sounds a bit hilarious, you know, invalid. What do you mean invalid? But it's true. Because it's not in sync with reality. There's a distortion there, there's an exaggeration there, there's an embellishment. So these neuroses, these disturbing emotions, these delusions, these fear-based nonsense that we have are informed by misconceptions deep in the bones of our being. So what we're practicing as a Buddhist is reprogramming our mind. And that really is the best way to put it. From here to Buddhahood, whether you're on your cushion in shamatha or in your daily life driving the car at 100 miles an hour on the freeway avoiding an accident. What we're doing, our job is to reorganize our mind. That's it. Get rid of the rubbish and grow the goodness. That's it, I promise you. That's it. From here to Buddhahood. That's not a joke, it's true. You're trying to reconfigure your mind. It sounds easy, but it's the hardest job we'll ever do, only because we're programmed from countless lives, Buddha says, with the misconceptions in the mind. And so what are those misconceptions? It's very clear. The whole of Buddhism is a presentation. The whole of Buddhism from A to Z is a presentation of Buddha's experiential findings about how things exist, about what exists. That's it. That's it. That's it. So what's the first one we talked about? What's the first one? Entry-level junior school, grade 1, a teacher gets us to think about impermanence. Why does Buddha tell us about impermanence? Is guess what, honey? That's how things are. And why is he telling us? Because we think the opposite. So practicing impermanence is noticing how we grasp at things as not changing and learn to change it and learn to not believe it and start to put into the mind instead the idea of impermanence and slowly practice it. That's it. Every second of the day. That's it. Every second of the day. That's practicing. What else does Buddha tell us? He tells us that the law of karma is the law that runs the universe, is the law within which the universe runs. within which the minds and lives of beings run. It's the law that determines the minds and lives of living beings. Not a person out there, not some dualistic idea of somebody up there running the show, like the puppeteer, like the boss, nothing like that. It's a very natural law. The law of botany is what runs gardens, isn't it? Wherever there are things growing, the law of botany is working. You don't have to even know the law of botany. It's going to happen anyway because it's natural law. So that's Buddha's view about the universe. It has nothing to do with the idea that there's some creator out there who does it all. Nothing like that in Buddhism. Complete misconception. Misconception, Buddha says. He's not being rude. Misconception, wrong thought, wrong view. It is not reality. The other view we have, another one, he would say that the mind is not the brain. It's a big shock for us neuroscientific type people in our culture who think we know everything and everybody else is stupid. And it's only now after, 3,000 years, as His Holiness says, all these amazing Indians, more than 3,000 years ago, who were the ones that began the investigation into the nature of self. I mean, we thought it was Freud, didn't we? 100 years ago. We think we're so clever. These Indians have been quietly doing an amazing job. And then Buddha comes along, he diverges in his own direction 500 years later, in relation directly into his experiential findings about the nature of the self and everything else. So Buddha tells us that impermanence is how things are, but we think things are permanent. So practicing that is to start to listen to that, listen to the theories about how things are impermanent, and then apply it in your daily life. Talk to yourself. That's practice. Talk to yourself. As you get upset when you break your pretty cup. Oh, my poor cup is broken. I'm so unhappy. Check it out. Don't be ridiculous, Robina. It's impermanent, baby. What are you unhappy for? You're not unhappy because you broke your cup. You're unhappy because you thought it shouldn't, because you got a misconception. That's practice. Every day, every second. You could give yourself a job every day, like a whole day, you're going to practice impermanence. The whole day, you'll be full on, you'll be exhausted by the end of the night, and you would have done a good job. That's practice. Then he tells us about karma, like I said, that your consciousness is not physical. That's alone is a mind-boggling concept. There's no such thing as a soul. We don't have a separate bit called a soul. He calls it consciousness or mind. Hugely different view from our materialist model. I mean, all the misconceptions in the West are huge in terms of Buddha's view, how he says how things exist. So, of course, His Holiness Dalai Lama is so kind. He doesn't walk in and say, listen, you guys, I'm right and you're wrong, and proceed to present Buddha's views as right. I mean, he'd be chucked out as a fundamentalist. How infinitely kind, compassionate, and wise. He brings everybody in and just talks about reality and talks about science and talks about religion and finds common ground. What an amazing method. But if you want to be looking at the facts and figures of the different viewpoints, he would say, mind is not your brain. He's not trying to be argumentative. That's a misconception, he says. So what are you going to do? How are you going to practice that one? Think of it in the other way. Hypothesize Buddha's view. You can't prove it immediately. It's too subtle, which is your consciousness is not your brain. It's affected by the brain, guaranteed. He says you're not made by a creator. That's a whole view. Therefore, when you have negativity, you don't go and ask for your creator to forgive you. There's no concept like that. So every way that we live our lives now, Buddha says our minds are completely consumed with, imbued with misconceptions. We think things are permanent, whereas they're impermanent. We think we're made by a creator, but we're not made by a creator. We think we're made by mummy and daddy. That's definite. We blame mummy and daddy for making me. I didn't ask to get born, not my fault, we say. We believe it as a truth, as a philosophical truth. Buddha says, don't be ridiculous. That's a misconception. So practicing is thinking that one. So the point is this. It's easy to think you've got a bunch of misconceptions in your mind, then you go and live your life as if it's separate. No, the Buddha's point is the way we live our life, how we suffer and how we're happy, all our suffering and happiness are the result of what's in our mind. It's a very marvelous view, The extent to which you suffer is the extent to which you're buying into your misconceptions. The extent to which you're happy is the extent to which you're buying into your virtues. That's it. So practice this every second. How are you going to practice this if you don't listen? You think you can sit on your cushion and close your eyes and put your incense on and then start watching your mind, think you're practicing? No. Thieves need mindfulness. More than that. So you've got to hear the teachings. This is an interesting point for us too. We get very confused and we conflate liking Buddhism and knowing Buddhism. This is a very interesting point, this one. So we come into this life, let's say some of us, and we like Buddhism. As soon as you hear it, you're attracted to it. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. You take refuge, you become a Buddhist. But we don't study much. Better than nothing, unless you're practicing morality and not harming sentient beings. But eventually, life after life, it'll run out if you don't keep putting petrol in the tank and listening to the views and strengthening those views so you can reorganize your mind. It'll just run out. Faith is not enough. Faith is not enough. Liking something is not enough. And that we really mistake it. I remember having a conversation with a person one time who was talking about attachment. And I could hear from how she was saying it. She was mixing it with love and different things. We all do that, you know. So I said, what's attachment? Tell me the definition. What is it exactly? And she said, well, I kind of know what it is. I can't say it. I don't know what, I can't say it, but I know what it is. She said, in my heart, I know. I said, what's 1 + 1? She said, 2. Now, I said, you wouldn't say, well, I kind of know the answer, but I just can't say it. You don't know the answer. It's very simple. You just like the sound of it. This is a very powerful point. I'm sorry. We get this when it comes to anything. You can't just say, oh, I think I sort of know the answer, but I can't say it. That means you don't know the answer. Because if you had to go to the market and buy 2 oranges, you won't know how to do it. So we confuse liking it with knowing it. It's one of the biggest mistakes, you know. That's why His Holiness Dalai Lama always tells us you've got to study the teachings. And then we go, oh, groan, study. Because you know very well, if you go to a philosophical class and you learn all the, you know, the intricacies of the various theories, it's bone dry. You think, oh, it's too boring. I want to get excited, you know. But any theory of the most blissful Bach music, when you listen to the theory, it is bone dry. When you see a painting, or you look at a beautiful building done by a brilliant architect, look at the details. They're so boring, you know. And that's where, if you have enthusiasm for the end result, you'll enjoy the bone dry theory. I know when I first studied with my philosophy teacher, Geshe Tekchok, and we studied a text about logic. So, of course, there's this 1,000-year-old arcane, bizarre, over-the-top, hilariously funny syllogisms and things, you know. But, I mean, when you understand, boring in itself beyond absurd, meaningless rubbish. Utterly inapplicable to today, 1,000 years later, you know. But when you know the logic, you know, the meaning, experientially, the benefit of logic, this sounds very surprising to us. Then it's blissful. And why is logic important? Because Buddha's saying all these delusions are completely hysterically over the top, embellishing and irrational and not logical. They're all based on a nonsense view about the self-existent me and you, and then they're all bolstering absurdities that bolster one's own sense of a separate self and cause total chaos for oneself and a nightmare for others. So we've got to rip them out. And one of the powerful ways is to use logic to argue. So one of your jobs being your own therapist is something, as she puts it. When you study the next piece, you got to learn about the mind, the nuts and bolts of what the mind is. That's half the time what we talk about. What I talk about, I kind of feel like I'll get caught one day because you'll just see I'm a phony because I keep talking about the same things. But there is only so many things, you know. So you talk about the nuts and bolts of what the mind is. It's nuts and bolts. You talk about the nuts and bolts of what impermanence means, the nuts and bolts of what karma is, the details, the theory, the bone dry concepts. And then you put meat on the bones, and that's how it becomes experiential and how you enjoy it because you can see the results of it. So the idea that practicing is merely closing your eyes and stopping thinking is like beyond embarrassingly absurd. It's like hilarious. It's like meaningless. It's ridiculous. The first step in practice is listening to the thoughts, Buddha's views about reality, impermanence, karma, the mind, the levels of existence, you know, the different types of sentient beings, happiness, suffering, its causes, the methods of how to get rid of it, and then all the compassion wing. How to lessen the delusions in the mind so that you break down the barriers that ego has constructed between me and other in order to want to only think of others and become a bodhisattva. It's all thoughts. It all comes down to being articulated as a series of thoughts. There's a vast body of knowledge there. And practice is, on the basis of those theories, putting meat on the bones of them. And it starts with the thoughts. This is practice. How can you bake a cake if you don't have a theory? How can you play Bach if you don't have the theory? It's insane. We know that. And and this is the point, if you don't have any enthusiasm for music, you will be bored to tears listening to the theories. If you have no enthusiasm for making a cake, you'll be bored with the theory. If you have no enthusiasm with the approach in Buddhism that you can become a more happy, wise, blissful person and help others, you'll have no interest in the theories. You'll be bored to tears. People often say, oh, I don't want all the theories, just as intellectual. I want to practice. You know? What we're really saying is we just want a good feeling. And that's not practice. So Mary, I don't know, then you said that, so I have to say this. So I'll keep talking about Buddhist theories again, back to the normal. That's my job. So why don't we look at the compassion wing? It's a different take. It's a different take. Got the wisdom wing, which is what we discussed so far, the nuts and bolts of all the work that we do on ourselves. Then on the basis of this, we now can go, oh my God, look at us, we're all in the same boat. How can I help them? So okay, the different levels of practice, and all, as we know, it's all structured nicely in different levels, incremental, more advanced, more advanced, more advanced. And all these are also all encompassed, or all within. They all got their own sets of vows. There are 3 sets of vows. This is one way of describing the 3 levels of the teachings. You know, junior school, high school, junior school, the wisdom wing, compassion wing, and then the wisdom. Anyway, whatever, these different levels. You know. So the first one, which is the wisdom wing, which is junior school and high school, which is the first and second scopes of the Lam Rim, all these are synonyms, the Hinayana parts of the path, are the vows of they call the vows of individual liberation, patimoksha. And all these are helping us do this level of practice, which is the level of playing safe, of being cautious, of backing off and don't harm sentient beings. Bare minimum. Harness your crazy body and speech. Harness the servants of your crazy mind. And at least don't harm sentient beings. Why not? Because that'll harm you. So so you are the beneficiary. You are the beneficiary of not killing, not stealing, not lying. The rats and cockroaches will have a party, as Lama Geshe says. Lama Zopa says they're happy, but the direct beneficiary is oneself. And that's the whole understanding of renunciation. We've got to be up to here with suffering and want to give it up. And how you give it up is you stop causing it. So all this is this first level of practice. Very clear, no wiggle room. Don't kill, don't steal, don't lie. And this is how you program your mind with amazing imprints of these tendencies. How marvelous. In the context of vows, blissful. Now the next level of practice, the compassion wing. These vows, the bodhisattva vows, are outrageous. Huge in their difference. All vows are about behavior for a start, not about the mind, they're behavior. So the first lot are the very strict, clear behavior of not harming. Control your body, control your speech. And this is the method of becoming already a marvelous, steady, content, fulfilled human being, you know. Then, and you also work on your mind. Then the next lot, the vows of the bodhisattva, are also about behavior. But these are to help you help others. The first lot are to help you help yourself. No question. That's the main motivation behind these. You can do them in the context of bodhicitta, sure, but the main energy of those vows is to protect you from harming others because you are sick of suffering and you don't want the karmic results. It's like going into a good diet and stop eating sugar. Why? Because you don't want diabetes. Now you start to look outside and go, oh my God, look at this. Everyone's got diabetes. Look at this. This is tragic. The whole world is suffering. So now you're informed with the method. So now you can help them. So you continue to benefit and you continue now to live. Now the next level of vows are to help. It's still behavior, but they're more spacious. It's more here based on the motivation. Well, you're breaking the first lot basically when you do the action to one degree or another. You break it by doing it. Here, you break the vow only based on motivation because it's more spacious, it's more powerful. At the bodhisattva level, the logic is that you're a much more powerful mind, having done some work already on yourself. And now your only wish is to be a benefit to others, but not in this cute, simple, nice way of being nice to people. Way more powerful than that. The whole point is when you're with others, in the first level of practice, when you're with others, you be cautious and don't harm them. You be cautious. When the next level of bodhisattva, when you're with others, you're thinking what's best for that person. You don't walk around saying, oh, how can I help you and be all nice? No. If you're at the level of the first level and you're with your boyfriend, your main job is to control your body and speech. Don't make trouble. Back off. Be careful. Be cautious. Don't harm yourself. Watch your body, watch your speech. At the next level, when you've controlled yourself at this first level, you're more marvelous already. You've harnessed your crazy energy. You know your mind well. Now, when you're with your boyfriend, the bodhisattva level is what's best for him. This is profound. This is profound. We can say these words so easily on what's best for the other person. It's massive if you really understand the logic of it. It's huge. And most of us aren't qualified because we're so caught up in our own needs. We can't see past our own nose. So it's huge, the bodhisattva path. Even the idea of compassion it's university level. And compassion is not enough. It's the point, as His Holiness says, it is not enough. you've got to have wisdom, which is the basics of the nuts and bolts of karma and the mind and controlling your body and speech and living in vows. So what's best for another is, you know very well as a parent, if you're driven by your attachment, which is the, you get rid of the first lot, if you've got driven by your neediness and your attachment and your divine child, and every time they're naughty, you're so full of attachment, and when you've got attachment, you're very weak. And you think it's love. Oh, the poor thing, he can't help it. And there he is, lazy at the age of 28. The number of mothers I talk to who ask a question in a course, I don't want to embarrass you if you're like this, who, you know, we're talking about it's difficult, how can I help my son? He's at home, he doesn't do his house. And I'm thinking he's 5 years old, and then she tells me he's 28. I nearly faint. Doesn't pay any rent. Does he pay rent? No. Does he do his own work? No. You clean his clothes? Yes. I think, holy God in heaven, what are you talking about? Help your son. Help yourself first. Get a bit of common sense. Chuck the man out right there. I mean, this is the nuttiness and insanity of how we think attachment and love are the same. And you learn this in high school, and it prepares you for proper compassion. So real compassion is tough love. Truly for the sake of your son, you do what's beneficial for him. But we mostly just do what's beneficial for our own attachment. So we give a long leash to the pathetic boy who's 28 and should be out there by now. Some people at the age of 28 have got 2 ex-wives and mortgages and 5 children, managing a multi-million-dollar company. This boy can't even pay rent. Oh, my poor boy. Excuse me, you've got to go back to the wisdom we're going to get on with, get on with attachment, working on your mind. Are we communicating here? Compassion is huge. It's massive. We love the idea of compassion. We all leap into compassion, you know. But you haven't done the wisdom wing first. You've got to be sick of your own suffering first. We go, oh, no, I'm not suffering. I just have compassion for other people. No, you missed the point. There's no stability. This is so important to understand. Just look at the very first practice. This next stage of our development. The first one is renunciation, you know. Junior school and high school. Now we go to the next level. We want the next level of next accomplishment is bodhichitta. Insane, outrageous, over the top shift in the mind. If you've got bodhicitta, genuine bodhicitta, you know. I'm going to look at the methods. This next level. There's a whole series. I mean, it's inconceivable the kind of person you'd be. The world would call you a saint. You'd be a saint, really. So there's one of the criteria. The first criterion, one of the many criteria is that you no longer have the thought of I. You've got an I, you're not stupid, you know you're me, you're not Fred. But there's no longer that usual central player of self-pity me at all. Only others. You've made this shift. Only others are in your mind, like a mother for her precious children. Can you imagine that? Just occasionally, when we think of compassion, we think of having a moment of compassion and tears come, you know. I had such a good meditation today, I felt compassion. The next minute you're shouting at your boyfriend. Well, it's just a moment of compassion. It's like you put your hands on the piano once and a nice sound came out. Oh, please play it again, Robina. Oh, no, I can't do that because you've got no stability. We've got to make it stable. We can do it every time. So, bodhicitta, this is the goal of the next stage of practice, which we'll talk about here. What is it? It's got two bits, got 2 pieces. First is only the thought to benefit whoever's in front of you. That's it. Like a mother, the whole world is her precious children. And you know, as a mother, it's a good example of a mother, even though she's full of attachment, we know the idea of a mother. Your job description, you're very clear as a mother. Even when you're 97, you know, and your beloved boy is 72, you still think you're his mum. You define yourself as the mother, you know. So so the normal definition of a mother would be a person who's responsible for the children. Think like that. So there you are, your child is drowning. You'd have unbelievable compassion, there's no question. But you wouldn't look around wondering who's going to save my kid. You're in the water, whether you can swim or not. That's the attitude of the bodhisattva. It's my job to take away the suffering of others. A huge, brave attitude, unbelievable. This is the first component of bodhicitta. Only others. The other quality is the long-term goal that's underpinning all of it, never ceasing, that I will never give up. Life after life after life after life after life. Never give up. Perfecting my mind, going through this, realizing bodhicitta, then realizing emptiness, and the 10 stages of becoming a Buddha until you eventually become a Buddha. Never giving up, this intense, insane perseverance to be of benefit to all sentient beings. That's bodhicitta. So let's look at the very first. There's different packages, it seems, isn't there, in the Lam Rim? They have one called what's it called? The 7 causes or something, or the 7 point something, or the 6 causes and 1 result. And the other one is the one that's exchanging self for others, this more outrageous attitude that all of our lamas really kind of love. It's very, it's the one of exchanging self for others. This lojong, what they call mind transformation. The whole attitude of exchanging self, a radical way to get the bodhicitta, exchanging self for others, putting others first. So there's a nice combination of these 11 little techniques that Pomponka puts together in the Lam Rim. And the first of these is a wonderful one. We can spend the whole day on this one because it tells us so much. It's so rich in what it describes. It's all the Buddhist path, almost like in these three. We'll go into this. The very first one, this first one, not three, I jumped ahead. The first one is the practice of equanimity. So this word is very common in Buddhism, and at the earlier stages of practice in the Hinayana path, there are a certain equanimity is a particular quality that you'll accomplish when you control your body and speech and mind. You'll become more stable. You become more emotionally content, fulfilled, not up and down like a yo-yo, not demented, not grasping and pushing and angry and jealous and up and down like crazy. No, you'll have more equanimity, very blissful. You'll be very radiant and blissful and joyful and steady. Here, equanimity is different. Used differently, same English word. Here, the equanimity as the foundation practice that culminates in bodhicitta. What it is, so this is my words for it, such that when you've got it, when you've accomplished it, it will be this heartfelt recognition that friend, enemy, and stranger, and there's no fourth category on this planet, all the sentient beings of this universe fit into either their friend, object of attachment, the first poison, enemy, the object of the second poison, anger, third, stranger, the object in this case of a particular function of ego grasping, which is called indifference. So you've got friends, enemies, and strangers. So the equanimity is this heartfelt recognition that friend, enemy, and stranger, it's very precise, are equal to each other from one point of view. They wish to be happy and don't wish to suffer. You could say that. So what we're trying to do with equanimity is not feel a gooey feeling, but prove this logically. Logic goes all the way from here. All of bodhicitta and all this is also based on using logic to smash ego's misconceptions. There's no question. The experience of bodhicitta is beyond logic. Like the experience of Bach is beyond the theories. You've done it. You've interpreted it. You've got to start with the theories. Same here. Bodhicitta is rooted in precise, clear, conceptual presentations. So you've got to use logic to smash ego's ridiculous misconceptions. And it's intense, hard work because we are addicted to ego's misconceptions, to bolster this precious me, Well, it sounds so brutal to say it like that. So let's look at this equanimity, okay? So as we know from the very beginning stages in high school, in the wisdom wing, we learn about the three poisons, as Mary mentioned, the three toxic emotions, these three, which are the summary of the 84,000 that Buddha points out. This is very fascinating to think like this. It's a very coherent, I've never seen the map. It must be a map tucked away somewhere in some text. What text do you think it'd be in, Don? Have you ever seen the map of the 84,000? They even talk about where it is somewhere?
No, I haven't seen anything in regard to that full detail.
They keep telling us it's there, and it has to be. It's logical. And I wonder where it is. Well, I'm sure Lama Zopa will find it. He finds things that no one else finds. We should ask.
This is true.
Find a map of the 84,000 mental illnesses, isn't it? Anyway, these three, they all subsume to this three, and there's logic to all of these. It's very powerful. And we learn about those way back when we're trying to get renunciation. So already we understand deeply attachment, aversion, and ego grasping. So these three root delusions, like we've been talking, ego grasping is this ignorance, maripa, the primordial, deep ingrained, instinctive root misconception that gives rise to the other misconceptions, such that when that is uprooted, you're on your way out of samsara into your nirvana, So this is, I'll just put it, this is my words for this now. So when we look back at the 10, when we look right back at junior school and we start to control our body and speech and we look at Buddha's little instructions, his 10 little points, 10 don'ts. He exhorts us not three of the body, don't kill, don't steal, or take the ungiven, as Tibetans put it. It's a lovely Tibetan word for stealing. Don't take the ungiven. It's very clear, isn't it? And the third one is don't misuse your body based on sexual attachment. Don't rape people, don't abuse others, don't cheat on your partner, etc. Then there's four of the speech, which of course is for us humans, Don't lie. Don't rabbit on about nothing. Don't use harsh language, abuse others, and don't talk bad things behind backs. cause so much suffering. He exhorts us to at least refrain from those 7. But the last 3 of this 10, they're about the mind. And it's sort of the way I like to put it is he kind of gets us to really look at the grossest level of these 3 root delusions. First one, he gets us to at least control the heavy level of craving, which is a heavy level of attachment. At least stop the heaviest level of attachment, which is what caused you to become a junkie, never stop eating, never stop having sex, never stop, taking a very gross level. And it's so painful. Craving for things all the time, deep distressing level of attachment. At least harness that level of energy for your own sake. Second one, at least harness the heavy duty level of anger, which is so brutal. And so you can see it in the world where you're angry, but you can't give it up and you want the others to suffer. This is shocking. Look at it. At least harness that. And the third one, it's called wrong views or something. And all this is a gross, it seems to me, a gross manifestation of the ego grasping. And this is a very narrow-minded, very fixed, fundamentalist, good, bad, you, me, very, very fundamentalist. And we're all fundamentalists. I'm right and you're wrong. That's fundamentalism. So even to the level, not to the level of what you call a philosophy, but it's fundamentalism. And that's this rigid level of mind, very narrow, very small, very narrow. That's one of the consequences of this ego grasping. Now here, it seems to me that's the way of saying it. This ignorance, this narrow-mindedness is a function of ego grasping, the root delusion. Now we're looking at these 3 poisons in a slightly different way. We're looking at these poisons. That's at very first level. And then we get to high school. We then start to go into more detail about these poisons. We now become our own therapists and get into real detail about what attachment is, what is aversion, and these ones. And here we're seeing how they're rooted in the root delusion, ego grasping. But now here in the compassion wing, we're looking at the 3 poisons again, but from the point of view of how we dump these on beings. The first lot is all about how you dump it on sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Here it's on sentient beings. So the first one is attachment, second is aversion. Now the third one, here it seems to me that one of the other manifestations of ego grasping, the first one is narrow-mindedness. This other one here is indifference. Couldn't care, a deep indifference. And who's that for? That's for people who neither harm nor help us, and they're called strangers. And that's 99.9999% of the universe. You think about it. Most sentient beings do not touch our lives. So what's the consequence of this? I couldn't care less. This is true. It's very depressing. Okay, we do read more things these days. We do get moved by stories here and there. But in general, what a stranger is a person who's neither harmed nor helped us. And so the usual consequence is therefore you don't care. What is a friend? By definition, is a person you're attached to who is nice to you, whom you adore. So you think of them all the time. And for that person, you do have some virtue, you do have love, and you do have compassion, and you are generous, but usually only for that group. And that's normal in our world. The monkeys do it, the dogs do it, the ants do it. We help our own people. We have attachment objects. That's called friend. The second group is aversion. Enemy. What's an enemy? We mightn't use that word, but it's a perfect label for someone you don't like. And what does that mean? A person usually who's harmed you, even if they just look at you ugly, even if they just are not nice to you in the shop, even if they're a person at work who looks at you mean or thinks you're a liar. We don't call them enemy, but enemy here is the term we use for anyone we have aversion for. That means a person who doesn't do what my attachment wants, who does the opposite of what my attachment wants, who does something mean. So that person goes into that category, and that's called enemy. So we can see one of the first logics here about equanimity is we've got to see how these change roles all the time. So what's this consequence of this? We know we have people we adore, we have attachment for, you think about them all the time, they appear gorgeous to you, you love them, you have compassion for them, we do have some virtue. We know there are people in our lives, and I'm not talking about the rapist or the torturer or I'm talking about the person who just irritates you at work, the auntie you can't bear because she talks too much, little baby things. As soon as anyone triggers, who doesn't do exactly what my attachment wants, who doesn't speak the way I like, who doesn't do what I want, who doesn't like the same movies as me, who doesn't behave the way I think. That's how deep attachment is, this junkie in us that is all the time interpreting the entire universe in terms of whether or not they satisfy my needs. This is what the 3 poisons are here in terms of people. We should be embarrassed how self-centered we are. But this is a normal world. We don't question it. So a friend, by definition, is someone who does what I like. By definition, an enemy is one who doesn't. And then the third lot, the strangers, they do neither. So they could all drop dead. 4/5, 7 9/10 of the universe could drop dead, and as long as it doesn't affect me, I'm happy. I don't care. I know it sounds brutal. I'm always extreme in how I say things, but hear it. It's true. And there's no fourth category on this planet. Why? Because the three poisons run everything. It's the entire universe. Buddha's view of the mind doesn't just refer to humans. It refers to all sentient beings. All. Ants, dogs, humans, animals, hell beings, gods, you name it. The three poisons is profound. Friend, enemy, stranger. It's incredible. So what are we trying to do here? And this is a meditation called equanimity. How are we going to prove so that it becomes a heartfelt recognition that actually, from their point of view, they're the same as each other. They all want to be happy. They all don't want to suffer. We know this intellectually perfectly well. We're intelligent, but we don't know it experientially. We don't act it out in our lives. So we've got to try and use logic to argue with ego's misconceptions, to rip out these misconceptions. This is practice. That means you catch yourself 1,000 times a day. You have to sit on your cushion only. Of course, you can sit for years on your cushion and get these realizations very profoundly. The great yogis do that. Best way to do it. Jump in the deep end. But we have to do it every second of the day. And that's what I'm saying in the whole Lam Rim. You could take any one of these 1 points and practice it for the entire, specialize in that day, just impermanence, karma, compassion, whichever one you like. Each is quite specific. It's very fascinating. They're not just a bunch of ideas that you're supposed to like. They're recipes for behavior and thinking. That's what practice is, every second. So let's look at equanimity, how you get it. Because it's already massive. It's already huge. We're not discussing love or compassion yet. And the point is, why is this first? This is the foundation. Let's just see the logic of this. It's important to understand. Equanimity is the start. It's upon equanimity that you can then build love, compassion, great compassion, bodhichitta. So why is that? Because right now, we do have love and we do have compassion. There's no question. But as Lama Zopa says, it's unstable. It's only for our beloveds. It's only for our beloveds. It's only for our attachment objects. Usually, they're the ones that preoccupy us. You go home and you live with those, or you're close to those. You visit those, you FaceTime those, you work with those. They're your beloveds. And all of our virtues are there, and they all get channeled into our beloveds. So, of course, it's normal. The world thinks that's perfectly fine. Buddha says, sorry, people, it's kind of limited. You've got the capacity to love and have compassion for every damn living being in the universe. I mean, that's exhausting to think about it. But this is what we're aiming for. This is what we're aiming for. That's where we're heading with this, bodhicitta. It's profound. So this equanimity, it's the foundation. And why? Because now we do have love, okay? So what is love? Love is the thought, oh, may you be happy. And when you see someone happy, you delight in it. So we have that, but only for the friends, pretty much. Compassion, what's that? May you not suffer. When you see someone suffering, your heart finds it unbearable. You have empathy. That we do have. And again, only for the friend, for the first category. Only for the first category. And all of our virtues goes into those people. This is normal. Monkeys and dogs, everybody does it. It's normal. So it's exhausting to think you mean I've got to be like this with everybody? Give me a break. I mean, all those boring strangers, you mean I've got to love them the same? Yes, Buddha says. So God, where do you go with that? It's insane. You can't just hope it and cross your fingers and have a tear come out of your eye and think you've got it. It's hard work deconstructing all the nonsense in your head, So this equanimity is the first one. It's profound. It's the foundation. So what does this mean? It means right now, I say to you, to Don, I love you, Don. And I mean, I want him to be happy. There's no question I do. He's my beloved. But it's rooted in, based in, informed by, polluted by, determined by the fact that he does what I want. When he starts beating me and cheating on me, unless I'm an idiot, and keep running back for more, like the victim does, I will now put him in the enemy category, and I will not love him, and I'll not have compassion. In fact, I'll really struggle not to want him to suffer. We know that. So this is already huge. So right now, love is, I have it, but it's only for one little group. So what we're trying to do here is have love for everybody. So where's the starting point? The starting point is equanimity. So and the point is now, the logic that ego uses for loving Don is because Don makes me happy. The logic for hating Don is because he makes me miserable. And the logic for caring neither way for the stranger is because they touch me in neither way. That's the logic ego uses, and we don't question it. So we're trying to upend that logic here, because it's not logic, it's ego's logic. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to establish, we want to develop love and compassion for all the friends and all the enemies and all the strangers. So the logic of ego is, if you make me happy, I love you. The logic of this equanimity is, if they are you get yourself out of it, we're going to go into it, and you're going to see that each of these three people equally wants to be happy and equally doesn't want to suffer. And that becomes the basis for the logic to love them. So I love Don now because he loves me. I don't love Don when he's mean to me because he's mean to me. Buddha says, Robina, just because Don is mean to you is no logical reason not to love him. I mean, that's mind-boggling, isn't it? Even more shocking, Robina, Buddha says, just because Don is kind to you is no logical reason to love him. And that's what he's saying. That the reason to love somebody is because they want to be happy. And love is may you be happy. And the reason to have compassion for somebody, and compassion is may you not suffer, is because they don't want to suffer. That's the point of equanimity. Once we get this, everything can grow beautifully on top of it. It's a good foundation. We've got to understand the logic of it. It's not just feeling, oh, everyone's the same, oh, I love everybody. Rubbish, too wishy-washy. Won't last a second. Are we communicating here, people? So let's go into some of the arguments we can use to argue with ego's ridiculous entrenched view. Self-pity me, you know. Well, you can use so many kinds of examples to prove to ourselves. What we're trying to do here is prove that enemy, friend, and stranger are equal in wanting to be happy and not suffering. That's the goal, to prove that truth. That's it. That's equanimity. Don't put more on top of it. Love and compassion come 6 steps later. This is the start. It's very precise. We get them all jumbled together, you know. So how do you prove it? Use logic. That's it. So look at yourself. I think this is a great method. Let's just say, you know, there's me here, and in front of me, think, right, even as we're talking, visualize now a person in front of you who's your beloved. I mean, if we have a beloved at the moment, maybe it's our poodle, I have no idea. Maybe you've got a beloved to the left in front of you, a person you adore, you're attached to, and who loves you. We have one of those people right there. In front of you, eyeball to eyeball, a person whom you call your enemy. Now, the trouble is, I know that the friend can hop into the enemy category every day. Just one minute you hate him and next minute you love him. But think of a different person. Let's say your past boyfriend, a person you haven't forgiven, a person who's harmed you. You know, think like this. If you're brave enough for this, maybe you know, if like the person yesterday we were discussing who's just remembered they were abused by their father, and they're having incredible intense pain, they've just realized it. You can't put that person there yet. You're not ready for it. But if we are ready to put a person who has harmed us in the past, especially if we haven't forgiven them, and we're brave enough, we can do that. So put that person right in front, eyeball to eyeball. Enemy. Third, to the front, in front of you, to the right, a person whose face you know just enough, but who's not touched your life either way. Put them there, stranger. And again, like I said before, remember, there's no fourth category on this planet. There are those you have attachment for, those you have aversion for, and those we don't care about. And this don't caring is a function of this ego grasping, isn't it? So one piece of logic is so perfect, this one. You think about this. We're trying to prove, you see what the proof is? We're trying to prove that each of them is the same as each other from one point of view. They want to be happy and don't want to suffer. That's the meaning of equanimity here. We're trying to prove that they're the same as each other from this one point of view. They're not the same of each other in terms of beauty or ugliness or tallness or thinness or fatness or intelligence. No, they're all different. But the one we're trying to prove is that they each want to be happy and each don't want to suffer. That's the simple point. We're trying to get to see that what drives every living being is the wish to be happy and to wish to not suffer. You can almost argue the whole of Buddha's teachings are based on that. Everybody wants happiness. Everybody doesn't want to suffer. We're trying to prove that point, and that becomes the basis of me wanting them to be happy, loving them, wanting them not to suffer, having compassion for them. It's a huge shift. Already equanimity is profound, and if we don't get it properly, love and compassion can't grow properly. So, okay, one beautiful example, simple example. Think of yourself and these people in front of you. Now, imagine your friend looking at you now, and they adore you, right? So they're looking at you with loving eyes. You can see by their look in their face, they think you're gorgeous. They're smiling at you. They love you. They take care of you, you know? Look at them. You can see them. And they see, in other words, they see a friend. They see beautiful you. So if they even wrote down a description of you, it'd be such a lovely description, wouldn't it? We know that. Now look at the person like your ex-boyfriend, the mean person from whoever it was who's been mean to you, who's harmed you, who thinks you're, or you, especially, no, excuse me, that you've harmed them and they hate you now. But you've harmed them. Think about it. They look at you with daggers. You can see on their face, they can't stand the sight of you. And if they wrote a description, you wouldn't even recognize that ugly person, would you? Think what I'm saying. The first person looks at you like an angel. Next person looks at you like a devil. Well, the stranger looks at you, they can't even look at you, you're so boring. Because they're completely indifferent to you, because you haven't touched their life. So what I'm getting at is here, right this second, you're just you. You want to be happy every second. Do you like having a headache? No. Do you like being happy? Yes. Every second you want that. Now, when the friend looks at you, you're their friend, aren't you? You don't want a headache right then. When your enemy looks at you and they think you're horrible, you don't want your headache right then. And when the stranger looks at you, you also don't want your headache right then. In other words, you don't 1 minute feel like a friend and then feel like an enemy and then feel like a stranger. They're labels these people dump upon you. They're extra labels they dump on you, all in terms of how you affect their life. It's artificial. They put these labels on top of you based upon how you take care of their needs or not. One person you adore and are kind to, the other one you're mean to, and the third one you do neither. So they see you in that light. It's so artificial. But the point to prove is, guess what? Whether my enemy, my friend, and my stranger looks at me, whether I'm suddenly a person's friend or a person's enemy or a person's stranger, I want to be happy every second. I don't want to suffer every second. It's so simple. So you just reverse it. That enemy, that friend wants to be happy. The stranger wants to be happy. The enemy wants to be happy. Same as each other. Equal. Utterly the same. But it's too hard to see it because we see them through the lenses of our needs. And our love is contingent on their being kind to me. Our love is contingent on this next lot. I'm not being kind. So in other words, we do feel the logic for I want Don to be happy is because he makes me happy. And the logic for wanting Don not to be happy when he's cheated on me is because, you know, he doesn't, what do you mean? What do you mean Don wants to be happy? I'll say. He doesn't deserve to be happy, I'll say. Because he's harmed me. So everything we see, friend, enemy, stranger, are constructs of this self-pity me. They are constructs of this I, made up. Or we see the entire universe through the lenses of my needs. And if someone satisfies them, it's called friend, and I want them to be happy. If someone harms me, I do not want them to be happy, and I'll struggle to even want them to suffer, and not to want them to suffer. And the stranger, I simply don't care. They fade into some grey background. We know this is how we see the world. So this proves to us how we're driven by attachment, aversion, and indifference, you know. I mean, we should be embarrassed. It's so self-centered, it's embarrassing. But this is the universe, you know, join the universe. So just equanimity, the first of the 11, is so hard to prove, so hard to feel the truth of. I mean, to really feel the truth of it. And you look every day, how would you practice this? 1,000 times a day. You've got a grandchild, let's say, or a child. You adore this child. This person is your beloved. You see them through the lenses of divine attachment. They look so blissful. And then they're playing with the kid next door, the smelly kid you can't stand. Look at the different view. You see one is gorgeous and one is horrible. Now, the fact is, your little beloved might be a little saint and the one next door might be mean. That's not being argued with here. We're not saying they're both saints, no. But the way our attachment and aversion paint a picture. So you can't stand this kid next door. But so how do you practice equanimity? You stop yourself in your tracks right that second. Robina, give it a break. He, in his heart, this second, he is feeling the yearning to be happy and not suffer in exactly the same way as my precious beloved. So the beloved, the attachment and the aversion just get in the way from seeing the truth that every one of them is driven by the same wish. We know it vaguely, but when it comes to experience, it goes out the window. We can see this. So to practice this is profound. We've got to try and practice specifically equanimity, the recognition that they want to be happy and don't suffer equally. That's the point about equanimity. Not suddenly get all lovey-dovey and think you love them. Not yet, that's way up. 6 more points to go. This is the stable foundation for developing stable love and compassion upon, you know. And it's not easy because the first thing we say is, what do you mean he wants to be happy? It's shocking to us to think that Don wants to be happy when he's blatantly cheated on me, blatantly been horrible to me. The enemy has harmed me. And it's too shocking. And that's why if we're not ready to do this, we just don't go there. We can't pretend to go there. Leave it. Don't even, equanimity is already high, you know. If we take these kind of concepts seriously. And every day you can practice it right there in your life. She wants to be happy, just like you know. Like when I'm when I used to fly on airplanes, and no airplanes at the moment, especially in America. I mean, there's like a war if you dare to jump in front of somebody in a queue, you know, in a line. It's like you can't do it. You can't even ask the security person, can you leap ahead? No, you've got to ask every single person in front of you. You can't ask one person because they've got to ask the people behind. So you don't even try to do it, you know. You give up, just give up. But the only way to get to the top of the line is get a wheelchair. They don't ask for a medical certificate. So I've done that more than once, I have to say, when I'm nearly missing a plane. Hop in a wheelchair and you just zap to the front. No one will dare argue with you then. I have done that several times. Anyway, never mind that. So the point is, if you were in a line and you were allowed to put somebody with you in the line, you see your beloved, oh, come in with me, come in with me. You can't wait to put the person in front of you, isn't it? With you, you're so happy. But a person you don't like, who do you think you are? Get to the back of the line. Immediately outraged. We know this, it's so normal. So we're not trying to love them yet or try to have compassion. That's way ahead. We're trying to prove the truth, the fact, scientific fact. They feel the same inside. They want to be happy. That's all equanimity refers to. It's quite precise and it's intense. Because what it's doing, when you do these equanimity meditations, you know, there's so many ways you can argue. There's arguments with ego, that's all. And you try all these different logical arguments. Then what you're doing is you're getting yourself out of the equation. You're putting these three people in front of you and you're trying to get yourself out of it. Because right now I see them all through the lenses of my needs, and that's it. So we're trying to stop that and see them as separate from me. That's what we're trying to do in equanimity. See them as completely separate. Get yourself out of it. Get yourself out of it. Nothing to do with you. Back off. Get yourself out of it. See these three people. See them separately, individually. They're their own person in themselves. And we're trying to prove very simply, simple scientific fact. They're driven by the wish equally to be happy, and they're driven by the wish equally to not suffer. So you can put Hitler in the middle. You can put Mr. Trump in the middle. You exercise. It's an exercise. You put the person you hate most in the middle. It's a powerful exercise. And then we have to think, well, what the hell am I trying to prove here? What am I supposed to bloody well do with this? When I recognize that he wants to be happy, Mr. Trump, what am I supposed to do with this? And that's the real point. You can't just be all sentimental and ridiculous. Oh, that python wants to be happy. Well, I'll give it, let it eat my hand. No, that'd be foolish. Your junkie in front of you wants to be happy. Oh, I should give them some junk. No, that's idiocy. We're not discussing that yet. It's simply recognizing they're driven. And it's the first step in this gradual incremental expansion of our consciousness to encompass them, to eventually culminate in bodhichitta. You know, step by precise step. It's very technical, but you've got to put it's feeling wise, but it's got to be very precise, not just wishy-washy. When we think of love and compassion, we have them all together in a big soup. We don't have any definitions. We don't know what they mean. We just think it's like tears, you know, and so we're so sentimental about it. Are we communicating here? So maybe you have some questions before we go on. What time is it? 10 o'clock already, a whole hour. My gosh. So we've just begun looking at equanimity, the meaning and the framework of it from the point where we're heading now. So we're going to go into more details about how to get it, and we'll go through the other stages to culminate in bodhicitta. So any questions so far about what I've just been saying? Any questions at all? Anybody? Jimena, who's talking? Jimena? Who is talking? Yeah, talk to me, sweetheart. Go on.
You know, in terms of
you're very soft. My volume's on full. Is your volume on? I don't know. My volume is full and I can hardly hear you. Let me. Talk, Jimena.
well, hi, Venerable Robina. My question is, I guess in theory, I understand the equanimity, but in the practice, I don't know if I don't feel anything good for anyone. How do I practice?
Sorry, Jimena, you're leaping ahead about 14 steps. First, tell me what you think equanimity means. What have you learned from what we discussed this morning? What is equanimity? What is this equanimity you want to cultivate? What is it?
Don't distinguish between my loved ones and my hated ones. No,
you're leaping. This is what I'm saying. You're a really good example of this. You're putting in a whole bunch of words and a whole bunch of meaning that is not there. It's a very precise attitude. I will say it again. It's very precise. Equanimity is you recognizing when you think of your friend now. Okay, while I'm talking, think of your friend. Now think of the person who's harmed you. You've got some people like that who've harmed you? Okay, yes. Think of that person now. Now think of a stranger. A person you know just enough to put them. Think of these three people. You got them in front of you? You got them in your mind? Three people?
Yeah.
Equanimity is your recognition, one thing precisely. Listen to me. You recognize that your beloved, your enemy, and the stranger are equal to each other from one point of view. They each feel the wish to be happy and not suffer. That precisely is equanimity. So where's your question now?
I don't have any questions.
Good, that's exactly right, because you're hearing the words I've been saying. I'm talking like mathematics here, precise definitions, not vague. You said, oh, love, see them all the same, and love and compassion for everybody. We haven't gone there yet. Equanimity is the first step in that. One, it's like a ladder. You've got to go step by step to the second, to the third. This is the first step. Recognize logically that each of them in their own heart, one could be a monster, one could be a saint. That's not discussed, but you've got to get yourself out of it and see that from their point of view, they're driven by the same wish. That's what we're trying to prove. And from there we grow gradually. Next step, we're going to go through the steps. Next step, next step. It's the basis for genuine love and compassion as we grow. We'll get to that eventually, 6 or 7 steps on. Are you hearing me? So
yeah, thank you.
Contemplating that. In your daily life, you can do it all day. You can notice things like this. You understand?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Wonderful, thank you. Any other questions? No other questions. Any other questions? No other questions. Okay. Well then, let's have a 5-minute break. 5-minute break. Contemplate the meaning and come back, and then we can carry on, and then we'll have an hour's break. Thank you, darling. See you. Hello, everyone. There's Ajna. Hi, Ajna. Hi, darling. Hello, everybody. So let's continue then. Does anybody have any questions from what I've said so far? Any questions about this? I'm really stressing, you see, the thing is, what I'm really stressing here, as you can hear it, it's really important. It's not being it is being technical, but don't think it's just being bare bones. It's necessary to understand the meaning of each of these words. As you can see in the Buddhist approach, it's very interesting, especially the way the Tibetans package the teachings. Everything is very precise. You know, it's very curious, this, because we don't think of spiritual paths like this. You know very well, if you want to make the most beautiful building, the most artistic building, you've got to know about inches and millimeters and screws, and you've got to be very precise with the theory. You know very well, to get a divine meal on the plate, you can't imagine the precision of the detail for the recipe and the cook. So we don't think that when it comes to experiential and spiritual, but this is exactly the point to get. That's why when the commander asked that question, I had to get him right down to basics. Exactly what is equanimity? Equanimity is the starting point, the recognition in your mind, the truth of the fact that those 3 people, from their point of view, are equal to each other in wishing to be happy and not suffer. That's it. And that becomes the ground upon which you then start to develop the other points, you know, until eventually it culminates in a really stable structure. It culminates in stable bodhichitta. So were there any other questions? Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, so as we know, if we've gone through the 11, these different points, you know, these 11 little points. But I'm not going to go through all. I'll you know, we'll just touch on different points. But they're all very gradual. They're all dependent upon the previous one, which leads to the next one, which leads to the next one, which leads to the next one. Just like any knowledge we have, it's like that, you know. So in this next one, what we're trying to do now is see that the next one, the third point actually, is that is that the mother, okay, the second point, which sounds a bit hilarious to us, you need your calculator for this really, is simply proving the fact that since there are countless sentient beings, they're all beginningless, given that there are countless sentient beings, and given that they're all beginningless, and we've all had countless lives, it seems logical that we bumped into each other countless times. So the point here is to try and think there will be my mother before. This is weird for us because we think our mother's horrible. So what do you want to try to make yourself miserable for, we think? But the point is pretty simple. Mother is an example of a person who's nurtured you, who nourished you, who's taken care of you. So if we can just think that for a moment, you know, that's fine. But the next point is, now we get to this third one, then the thought, that the contemplation here is, the mother is kind. Actually, this is number 3 point of these 11, but really there's 2 points here. One is 3A is the mother is kind, but the second one is more expansive. This is more, it's very powerful for our mind. The second one, all sentient beings are kind. These are the headings. So let's again unpack these concepts. What does it mean? The mother is kind. This to us is the most hilarious statement. So we've really got to look at this carefully. What are we trying to prove? Well, remember, the point of all of this is we're going to end up with bodhichitta, where we have love and compassion for every living being as if they were your most precious child. So they use these analogies of the child and the mother. They're good analogies. So here we're using the concept of the mother as a person who gives birth and who loves and takes care of and nurtures and takes care of and loves and has compassion for somebody. Now, we know that mummies can be mean people. Join the universe, nothing special. Of course, that shatters us in our culture. We're shocked by that because we assume that our mother actually created us. So we have this huge expectation that she's going to create me. She'd better be perfect, baby. So we have a deep assumption, which is very fascinating, that our mother should be perfect, that she really should be perfect. It's very fascinating. That's another whole discussion, really. But here, I mean, it's all part of the discussion. So what the hell are we trying to prove if we think the point, the mother is kind? Well, you know, it's a very powerful exercise to do. And so, but the point before we go any further, let's look at this word kind here. You know, the word kind. I think the way we think of kind now is, again, it's very self-centered. It's based on attachment. If Don does everything I want and he adores me, he looks after me, and he's loving and he's kind, brings me my cup of tea in the morning, he's really loving, like many people are loving to us, it's wonderful, then of course I will say Don is kind. Now, Don might be really mean to his ex-wife. He might have been horrible to her. He might be really mean to his boss at work. I don't care. Because as far as I'm concerned, if he's nice to me, he's kind. That's it. So our view of kind right now is very self-centered, I think. We use it when a person does what my attachment wants. Don, on the other hand, Don could be really mean to me, but kind to 97 other people. I will never call him kind because he's not kind to me. So we always see everybody through the lenses of what they do for me, through our own needs. It's really clear. So right now, if you've got a mother, and it's perfectly fine, but lots of people have mothers who have been terrible, really shocking. Mothers do terrible things to their children. It's a fact. It's the nature of the universe. Okay, Buddha has explanations. It's called karma. We won't go there now. So then you think, well, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? How can I possibly prove the mother is kind? And then even worse, because all senti means you've been your mother, then they're all kind. It's like too insane for our minds, you know. What am I going to do with this? Well, what do we do with this? Well, it's a really powerful exercise, I think. It's a really good exercise to do with this. We know ourselves. Okay, to put yourself there. You know yourself, let's say you've got a relationship that's now finished. Let's say it's your child. Okay, let's say it's your child. You're the mother in this case. You're the mother. Now you're not perfect. You know you've been mean and nasty, and you get mad at the kid when she was little, and you're just because you're human. You've got attachment, you've got anger, you've got your own depression, your own fears, your own dramas. You know that because you're a human being. But for whatever reason now your child, and this is what happens is, first your child was attached to you and thought you were a saint, but now your child, as she grows up, she thinks you're horrible. She hates you. She rejects you. She thinks you're a monster. Many people think that about their mums. So you know you're really brokenhearted because you know you did bad things. You know that. But you can see that your daughter is over-exaggerating your badness, and she's only remembering your badness. She's forgotten all the good things you did for her, and they are definitely there. So this is what we have to try and do. Reverse it again. You're the child, and there's the mother. And it's a powerful exercise, I would say. It's a really powerful exercise. And again, this is using logic to remember this person whom you only remember as bad, who did bad things to you. Yes, she did bad things to you. And again, if you're not ready for this, you don't go there. But if you're brave enough, you start to remember good things your mother did for you. This is fact. So the point here is what kind means here is the very fact, I think, the very fact that she did anything to you at all. The very fact that she did anything to you at all, anything for you. So first of all, she gave birth to you. Clearly she didn't have an abortion. That's a really good reason to think she's kind. Many mothers have an abortion. I had an abortion when I was 23. That's a really powerful reason. For example, you might have a mother who gave you away. And that's the one logical reason in our world to think that your mother with absolute certainty is not kind. Some people are brokenhearted by that, never forgiven their mother, feel totally abandoned, and they can't even imagine the concept that your mother's kind. Well, I think you're wrong. She didn't have an abortion. This is a fact. I remember a friend of mine, not a friend, a man I met a few years ago at a centre. He said he only discovered, like at the age of 50, that his mummy, when she was pregnant with him, she was ready to have an abortion. She decided. She was in the hospital, in her gown. Everything was ready. Everything was organized. All the doctors are waiting, everything. And she suddenly, when she walked through one door, she put her hand on the handle, and at that second, she changed her mind. So he was so moved by this, because what he's realized is his mother consciously decided to give birth to him. This is incredible. Your mother didn't abort him. So this is the most unbelievable action she's ever done for you. You should never forget that as long as you live, even though she did give you away. She gave you a life. This is really powerful. It's truth. This is scientific fact, but we don't like to think that way. We just think she gave us away. So what happens is, because we have aversion and attachment, we exaggerate. So in the case here where you feel rejected by your mother, she was mean to you, and she was, I agree with you. If we can do this exercise, it's very powerful. You simply sit down and you remember the good things. So she did give birth to you. You can't argue with that. She fed you. She wiped your dirty bottom. She put up with your screaming and your yelling. She took care of you. She gave you food. Daddy might have as well, but think of the hundreds of ordinary things that person did, which is why you're still alive. But we think, well, that's just her job. What do you mean she's kind? Well, all the more reason to think she's kind when you know that she was a bit neurotic. You know how hard it is for you when you're feeling depressed and angry to be kind to somebody, to reach out beyond yourself. That's what your mother did. It's a very powerful exercise. And so what we're doing here really, when you've got mainly anger in your mind, you've painted this picture of your ugly mother. When you have attachment in your mind, to paint the picture of a delicious mummy. They're both embellishments. We're trying to be realistic here and see the good things that our mummy did. So what you're doing is painting a new picture. It's very powerful exercise. So what's the point of this? Why are we doing this? Because when the mind is full of delusions and resentment and narrow-mindedness and self-centeredness, we are closed. Here we're trying to open our mind to others. We're trying to break down the barriers that delusions have created that separate us from others. It's an exercise in us chipping away at the delusions that break us, that prevent us from being connected to others. This is the purpose of every one of these techniques. Therefore, our benefit, to grow us, you know. So it's powerful to think of the good things. We don't want to if we're angry with them and hurt by them. And they did hurt us. I'm not saying they didn't. This is powerful and we can do it. You know? The mother is kind. It's incredible. Now the second one, 3B, more vast, it's based on dependent arising. Really, it's based on interdependence. Initially, it sounds ridiculous. All beings are kind. It sounds hilarious. What does it mean? Well, it's logical. Again, scientific truth. Think of it. Since we were conceived, up to now, you think about it. There's not a single thing that's facilitated our life that isn't the handiwork of countless sentient beings. Think about that. And we're trying to prove that. Think about it. Just the fact that in the womb, in your mother's womb, your daddy and mummy worked really hard to get that egg and sperm together, didn't they? That became the basis of for your mind to run to and join with to turn into you. And what did your mummy do for those few months in your womb? Think about this alone. Think about this alone before you're even born. Look at the work, the number of sentient beings. You know, let's say my mummy ate fish and she ate cows, you know, she ate animals. Or even just the animals alone. What is my body? The stuff that she put into her body turned into my body, isn't it? My body was part of her body, but my consciousness joined into it. So then my body is the result of it's a mountain of cows and chickens and fishes, isn't it? Not to mention all the other creatures who died as a result of which I got vegetables and things. So out comes this body. What is my body already, you know? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. The fruit of countless animals, life and death. And then from that second, she was in the Mercy Hospital. I remember the Catholic hospital in Australia. The Mercy nuns took me, probably put me in a warm, whatever they do. I don't know. I haven't had babies. I don't know. Took care of me and nurtured me. Mummy fed me. Since then, since that second, every single thing I've ever had, all my clothing, my glasses, my things, my body, the house we have, the cups we use, every single tiny item in our universal lives that facilitates our life is the handiwork of sentient beings. You cannot argue with this. This is fact. Fact. But when we go, well, who cares? It's their job. What do you mean? You know? How come they're kind? When we say kind, we also mean, when we say kind, we mean, oh, they do what I like. But we also mean by kind, and this is valid, a person who is just in their nature kind, you know, oh, she's a sweet, kind person. That can be true. But here, kind is much broader. It's the fact that anyone has done anything, even without realizing it, that has facilitated my life. But for the hard work of people who make lenses, I'm as blind as a bat, I promise. My eye has to go, this eye, when I want to see without my glasses, and I can't even do it now, when I was younger, my eyes were out of focus. So I had to force this eye over towards my nose. I was totally cross-eyed. like hilarious, you know. Well, my kind opticians, even back then, were able to find glasses that fixed my eye without having to look cross-eyed. I mean, I would have been ridiculous otherwise, you know. How kind they are. I've got these triples now, and this is like plus 12 down here. I'd have to have sources practically if I had glass, you know. But clever people have invented very thin lenses. Yeah, they're expensive, but clever, intelligent humans, but for whom I'd have horrible glasses on my throat. Everything you have, my glasses, my clothing, everything we get, our socks, what we want, we take all of this totally for granted. We never think of any of the people who made our things. I mean, if I have a look at my iPad, and I'm a fan of Steve Jobs, I appreciate it because I can think of all the people doing the work. But we just expect that it's our right and walk in the shop. I want the best thing. I want the best this. I want the best clothes. It's my right to have it. We never think of the people. You know, when sometimes they have those advertisements on the television, companies, and they have a long shot of all the workers, just showing all the people who made that phone, all the people who did your electricity or something. It's very powerful. All these people whom you never think of. Think of everything you have that facilitates your life, your credit card. This ability to walk in and put a piece of plastic in and you get your shopping. It's like a miracle. Who makes it happen? This is not joking. Sentient beings, humans and their intelligence. Yeah, they make money. That's not the issue here. The fact that all this dependent arising humans and beings throughout the universe all work in a way, and the result is I get a life, I get clothing, I can see, I can do this, I can, everything, your house. There's not a single thing you point to in your room now that isn't the handiwork of sentient beings. This is profound, but whoever thinks it, we don't. We appreciate them if they think of us specially, you know, if somebody makes something specially for you. If I got my iPad and Steve Jobs has a note on it, especially for Robina, I'll really appreciate. We get this. Mothers are like this. We're prepared to thank a person if we like it. Like if you're in the cafe and the girl serves you a nice piece of chocolate cake, extra size, with extra cream and a discount, you'll definitely call her kind. Even if she talks behind your back about this fat old Buddhist nun, you know, I don't care. She gave me what I wanted. She might have worked 10 times harder for this old piece of cake because the poor cook forgot to make the new cake. I don't think she's kind because I didn't get what I wanted. So that's how we all are now. We see everybody, everything through the lenses of my attachment. It's so brutal. It's so self-centered. So we're trying to force that away, cut through it, use all these logical techniques to smash ego's misconceptions. And the consequence here is a step closer to others, a step away from separateness, a step closer to connectedness and to love and compassion for all of them, as if they were your precious child. This is the logic behind all these little thinkings, these little contemplations, you know. So powerful. So huge, so enormous, but you got to do it. We hear it. When we hear it, it's not like emptiness. We got to squeeze your brain. This is not difficult thinking. We just don't think it. We're just automatically going to a shop with the assumption that I should get what I want. We're just an assumption there that we deserve to get everything we want, and that the supermarket should be clean, and all the signs on the aisle should be perfect, and all the nutritional value should be perfect, and the price should be the best, and the line through the paying should be the quickest. Then we'll say it's a nice supermarket. Everything is to make life easier for me. And if it is, I'm prepared to think they're kind, but no other reason. So it's really very different, you know. But for the handiwork of trillions of sentient beings, including the death of trillions of sentient beings, I wouldn't even exist. And this includes even if you're a vegetarian, a wholly vegan. If you're a wholly vegan, and I mean it sarcastically here, excuse me, marvelous to be a vegan and vegetarian, incredible. But don't feel like a saint because you don't put flesh in your mouth. That wheat field that grows wheat, 20% for the bulls, for the meat eaters, and 80% for the vegans and vegetarians. That wheat field, when the wheat is not being grown, has millions, there's one in Australia, I remember reading some scientists, millions and millions of cute little field mice gather there. They sing love songs to each other, they said. He had photos of them. And what do you do when you have to grow the wheat? Slaughter the lot. But even one guy, I remember on Facebook, we had this discussion, oh, that doesn't matter, you can't help it, he said. That's insanity. The ignorance of that statement is so shocking, I can't believe it. Because we're so attached to food. So if we ate those mice, then we'd be in trouble. But if we just kill them because we want our nice pure rice, then it doesn't matter. That's insanity. So even being a wholly vegan, even if you're a fruitarian, even if you're an Aryan, you live on the air like the great yogis can. Geshe Lama lived on the air. He ate the air. He was able to get nourishment from the air. Even then, you're still harming sentient beings. And sentient beings are doing things to facilitate your life. These are facts, you know. And the point of all this is not to get clever, not to be clever, but to open the heart, to recognize every time you see anything, everything you see, it's the handiwork of human beings. And the person who invented, you know, my mug here, It could be a pedophile. That's not the issue here. That's not the issue. The fact that he did it, and I've got a nice mug to keep my tea warm. This is a profound one. Conclusion, all sentient beings are kind. Next step, number 4, conclusion. I must repay their kindness. This already is incredible. I must repay their kindness. How? Continuing to work on your mind to become a Buddha to benefit sentient beings. That's the logic, you know. Huge one. Any questions? People now want some questions now. Come on. I'm getting hoarse. Questions? Yes, go, Daryl.
Yes, Venerable.
Talk to me, Daryl.
Great to see you. You just a couple of minutes ago when you were
Hang on a sec. Go on, talk to me again.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, when you were talking about keeping the field mice in mind, you used a little phrase. You said the point of this is not to be clever, but to open your heart.
Yeah.
This is actually this comes out of obstacles of my own practice. I can be a very intellectual guy. And
which one? What kind?
I can be very intellectual, overly.
Oh, that's fine. All of us, yes.
And so, you know, I'm with you when you're saying the logical precision of Buddhism, and it starts with concepts and such. But I guess it's sort of both a question and I guess an observation of my own practice that it's been important for me when I feel the teachings move into my heart. And I don't mean that in a sentimental way, but there's something different.
It becomes real. It becomes experiential. Yeah, that's the point.
Oh, okay.
Then,
maybe that's it then.
what do you mean by that's it? I can't hear the point.
Well, I guess I was searching for a question in there, but I guess because previously in prior teachings, you put a lot of emphasis on conceptuality and how like even emotions begin as thoughts and such.
Which is the Buddhist view. I'm presenting the Buddhist analysis of our mind. Yeah.
But I guess, so then my question then would be, but the thoughts are kind of a means to an end, which is to open the heart. Is that overstated?
No.
Okay.
What do you mean? This is a really good discussion. Keep going, Daryl. I sort of can get you, but I want you to spell it out properly what you're saying.
I guess maybe the most effective way to communicate it is to just say that for me, I felt like there have been important breakthroughs in my practice when I know something with my heart, like compassion.
I hear that. I hear you say. I know you're saying that point, and I already know what you mean, but I want you to spell it out. So where's your problem here? You're suggesting there's a problem. You're suggesting there's something missing. So explain exactly. I hear what you're saying, but I need you to spell it out for your sake and everybody else's.
Okay. So is conceptuality in Buddhism, at some point, does conceptuality become, I don't want to say less important than.
Okay, so Daryl, I can hear you. And what you're suggesting, what you're saying is there's a difference between conceptuality and experience.
Yes.
You're right. Yeah, but do you think I haven't been saying that the whole time? And what do you think the purpose of all these thoughts is? Why am I giving you Buddhist theories? Why?
Right.
Why? I'm asking.
Well, I would say that the concepts are to the end of developing the 4 immeasurables and. No,
don't keep it more simple, Daryl.
Oh.
I mean, this is what I use the example all the time. If you, this is the whole point. That maybe you have, and I think you haven't joined the dots yet, but you sort of are, and you're a great example because we all think this. So, why would you sit down with a cook who will then describe to you exactly what a teaspoon is, what a tablespoon, and what pepper is, and what salt is? Why would they give you all these boring theories? You can't see any pepper and salt in pots and stoves yet. Why is he giving you these boring theories? Why is he giving you all these boring theories?
So that I can cook a recipe.
And the experience is the heart opening, isn't it? So why else are you hearing about what equanimity is in terms of words? Why? What's the reason to hear the words?
To have the experience of.
Then why are you doubting? Why are you assuming that in presenting all the theories that it contradicts experience? The whole point of presenting theories is to get the experience.
Right.
This is the point you're missing. It's like you're suggesting there's something missing in presenting the theories, in presenting all the concepts.
Right. But
the only reason to present concepts is because and the Buddha's point is, Daryl, But because you, like all of us, have got the wrong concepts of attachment and the wrong concepts of anger and the wrong concepts of driving it, grasping at permanence, and the wrong concepts of no cause and effect, and the wrong concepts of blaming everybody else for your suffering. Those are concepts, Daryl, but you've done them for eons. They're now experiential. So you know about experience. You've practiced permanence, no karma, ego grasping, attachment and anger to perfection. You've got them down to perfection. All of us are practicing those concepts to perfection. So we've got to unpractice them. So you've got to start with what the correct concept is, and then you make it experiential. That's the only point of all this. There's no other point. Can you hear my point now?
Yeah, I totally got it.
Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you.
Very good point. Thank you so much. Who else? Anyone else? It's a powerful point. It's exactly the point, Daryl. And that's why, this is exactly why, I'll go back to put you on my screen. That's why if you go to, say, the cooking class, you think that you heard there's a cooking class, and you've seen cakes in the cake window. Oh, I'd like to learn about cakes. And you go into the class and you don't see any oven, you don't see any cakes. You just hear this boring person on the wall describing all these. And you think, oh, this is so boring, because you can't see that person. It's because you can't see the connection between the theory and the result. But when you know you're learning the theories so you can get the cake, then you'll enjoy the theories. Same here, Daryl. If you don't know what equanimity is, if you can't define it, you won't get it. How can you experience it if you don't know the theory? If you don't know the definition, Daryl? If you don't know exactly, that's why I said to Jimena when she started talking, I said, what is equanimity? And I got her to spell it out. Then you can grow it and become it. If you don't have the right theory, you'll never get the experience of equanimity. It is impossible. Think about that. Think about that, Daryl. Can you hear me? Are you sure? I'm not trying to bully you into it. I'm trying to communicate. Yeah. Are you hearing the point?
I am. I think what I was saying also is that for somebody like myself, it's easy to get trapped in the concept.
But there's always a mistake everywhere. But you don't say, again, you're making a mistake and saying, yes, but you realize, because you've forgotten and you think that the theories are the cake. You're stupid to think that. You're sitting in there being so smarty pants, and you go around telling everybody, oh, I'm now the best cake maker in the universe because you remember 47 recipes, but you don't know how to make a cake. Well, you're an idiot if you think that. That's not what's being said here.
Got it.
That's not what's being said, but that's our problem in our intellectual culture. And it's a good reason you say, Daryl, because in our culture, we see no relationship between intellect and experiential and love and compassion. We think they're separate parts of ourselves. And so, you know, and this is why when I think of like, so what Buddha's talking about is we need wisdom. Wisdom in one way is saying getting rid of the rubbish misconceptions and having the right conceptions, which then will become experiential. So then wisdom for Buddha, having correct concepts is the stepping stone to experiential. That's the point. Like theories of cakes is the stepping stone to the delicious cake. But if you see them as separate and you get all caught up in the intellectual, which is our culture, you're in serious trouble. And that, of course, is the danger. That is the danger. That doesn't deny that conceptuality isn't correct and must be there first. So then, you know, for example, in our culture, you can have wisdom. You can be a genius mathematician. You can have brilliant wisdom, but not in our culture. There's no relationship between having wisdom, having correct concepts in your head, and being happy and ethical. That's the Buddha's point. That your happiness and your good ethics are rooted in having correct concepts in your head. But we see it as separate. You can be wise and brilliant as a mathematician and go home and beat up your children, because we see no relationship between intellectual wisdom in our culture and ethics and happiness. That's the difference in Buddhism. It's ethics and happiness are rooted in getting the right concepts, because suffering and unethics are rooted in wrong concepts. That's the point that Buddha's making. And we take a while to hear this, because it's not how we are. We're not how we understand Buddhism. We just think it's all being mindful and lovey-dovey and friendly, you know. You understand me? Good. I'm so happy you said that point. Thank you, Daryl. This is really crucial points, you know, to understand. Thank you so much. Who else? Anyone? It's just also, Daryl, it's an interesting point. Some of us, turn your mic off, Daryl.
Sorry.
No, I can grab someone else. Okay, I can shout to someone else now. So now listen, Daryl, the point, such a good point, Daryl. But the thing is sometimes, you know, some of us are more clever with the words and some of us have more pure heart. And this is really valid. There's nothing wrong with that. So and also we have to enter practice in a different way. I'm taking it from a particular point of view here, which is undeniably true. But let's say some of us come into this life already embedded in our minds, there is love and compassion because we have practiced it before. This is very possible. Some of us come into this life with lots of love and lots of patience and lots of compassion, but we would not know how to give one definition of any of those things. That's nothing wrong, because you're now experiencing the love and compassion. It's like, but you still got to learn the theories in the end. It's a bit like these children. Like I say, when I look on YouTube and see these amazing 6-year-olds playing Bach, you can't believe your eyes, you know, you just can't believe these brilliant beings who could not tell you all the theory. They're 6 years old, for God's sake, but because the memory of these theories is so strong, they come into this life with experience of music, just like some people come into this life with the experience of love and compassion, but you wouldn't know how to put the theory on it. But the Buddhist approach would be, you can't leave it at that experience. You've got to keep having, because even if you want to help others, that 6-year-old can play Bach, but if she can't open her mouth and help others play Bach, then there's something missing. And a loving and compassionate person, if they don't know how to help another person become loving and compassionate, it will eventually die out. So there's still, we need both. And the theories lead to the compassion. And then by having the theories, and we've also got the experience, we can now teach others the recipes. Do you understand? So it's very powerful. You know, these points are very, very important. Thank you so much. So helpful.
I have a question, Venerable Robina.
Who's there? Dawn. Hello, sweetheart. Talk to me.
Hi. So when you were sharing the example of mother and child, not the 28-year-old first example,
Right.
but
Yes,
the second example where you were describing that when the kids are young, they have this. They think that we're
saints.
They love us, right?
I know, exactly. I know. When I was little, I was in love with my mother. She was a saint. It's so true. But then she falls off the pedestal.
So now my kids are 14 and 16.
Yeah, I think of the monster.
That's and it's right. not the same, right?
Oh God.
So what happens is like one of them will begin to criticize my cooking or blame me because they fell off their bicycle, or I mean, just and I can, as they're doing it,
yes,
I know they're in their delusions.
That's right, exactly.
And I know that I'm an easy target for all of those doubt and confusion and insecurity and embarrassment, all of that.
Yeah.
So I do not react with anger as that criticism is occurring, yet as soon as I feel that the emotions on their part has gone down a bit,
yep,
I speak to them about, okay, you did not need to blame me nor yourself about falling off your bicycle.
Right.
It occurred, right? Like, it's not a situation where
yes,
you have to, or like with my daughter who really thinks I'm terrible.
right.
I know that she knows that I love her.
That's right.
And I know that as maturity occurs.
That's right. Yes.
I guess so I have boundaries around their behavior.
Yes.
So I will say, this is not okay with me.
Right. So I think this is the point, Dawn. What you're saying really is, isn't it? This is now from the other side of the foot. You're the mother. And because you are still in the role of mother, these people are living in your house, right? You feed them, you look after them, you educate them. They depend upon you. So there have to be certain rules that we all agree upon. I mean, they can't sit in there and abuse you and, oh, I'm the mother, let them do what they like to me. That's irresponsible for them, and it's irresponsible for you to allow it. But the key point is this, as you're saying, when the emotions calm down, the skill, you've got this compassion, there's no question, for your children, but the wisdom part of you has to be the ability to know when to speak and what to say that will actually bring benefit. In other words, there's no, as you're suggesting, there's no point in yelling and shouting, don't talk to me like that. It's in one ear and out the other. So that's your wisdom. And that comes from you being steady and reasonable and knowing where they're coming from, but never losing the recognition that, that you're there to educate them, you're there to take care of them, and you're there to help them understand things. So that's your wisdom. And sometimes it's best to say nothing. Other times you really be strong. And if they can trust that you're a steady influence in their life, I can see with my mum, she was driven, because the family was chaotic and my father wasn't so good. So my mother would overcompensate all the time. And I had a sense that she was allowing me to do things that she shouldn't be allowing me to, because she was feeling all soft and attached and feeling bad and guilty. And then I never felt that I had she was strong there for me. Sometimes she'd be all loving, other times she would not be there. So you've got to be this rock of Gibraltar, and this comes from your practice. You're recognizing your attachment, your fears, your delusions, knowing where they're coming from. And if you're like a rock of Gibraltar, they can shout and yell and bounce off you, but you will be there for them and they'll listen to every word you say. But that's your wisdom. That's the skill you have to cultivate. And so you understand?
I understand what you're saying. And there's times where I start to become under my own delusion of anger or irritation.
That's right, exactly. Of course, you're human, you're natural. Unless you really work on yourself, it's going to happen.
And then I have to ask to not be engaged in the moment, like take a moment.
Sorry, what? Then you do what?
Like then I'll ask for us to maybe be in our own rooms or
what? Sorry,
like
what?
my kids.
What? Give me a scenario.
So if I get angry, so if I start to get impatient and angry,
then what will you do?
That my son is like criticizing my cooking or something.
Right. So
then I will like take my own space.
What do you mean? What literally would you do? In the middle of cooking the dinner, your son's criticizing you. What would you do?
If we're sitting at dinner, then I just won't react to. Like
you should react. Exactly.
Right. I feel a reaction, but I won't.
Good. That's important.
Right. Which is what you were saying the other day.
In other words, the point is, listen, sweetheart. The point is, our first work on ourselves is the wisdom wing. Know our own selves well. Know your own attachment. Know your own anger. Know your own jealousy. Know your own. So you begin to navigate yourself better, and you become more content within yourself and more confident. So then, in relation to others, that's the compassion wing. So your presence in the life of your children is totally the compassion wing. That means whatever you do has to be the thing that's best for them. Every word that comes out your mouth, every action you do, if you're trying to practice the compassion wing, it's for their sake. Think like that. But it's informed by your ability from you doing your own work internally. And the more together you are in yourself, the more wise your compassion will be. So you'll know at each point what to say, when to say, and how to say it. Of course, we're not perfect yet. We have to learn. And the more steady you are, then even though he's mean to you, and if you're really clear and wise and strong in yourself, it won't hurt you, but you'll know when to say something for his sake, not because you're feeling hurt. Sometimes you might just let it go because it's no big deal. Other times you'll be very clear. That is not appropriate. Do not speak to me like that. And that's appropriate to say that, but coming from clarity and for his benefit. This is intense. That's wisdom.
And the opportunity as a mother to practice this at home, this like daily
practice, honey. It's called daily practice.
Can be extended to the
everything, your entire life.
And strangers and enemies.
Everywhere. This is the whole point. The wisdom wing is all the nuts and bolts of controlling your body, controlling your speech, knowing yourself, having a practice. It's very internal. Putting yourself together, becoming more stable. That's the first level of practice. And then as soon as you're with others, you attempt to function as if you're there for them. This is pretty profound. So clearly with your children, there's no question, there's always that relationship. But in the stranger, in the street, in the people in the shop, people you don't like, people in the traffic, you always get that sense. You've got to have the wisdom there too, to know, so compassion is the wish to be a benefit to others, but it's the wisdom that you've developed in yourself that enables you to do the right thing that will benefit others. Compassion is only the wish to help others, but your own knowing your own mind well and your own internal practice informs your compassion, and it makes it very wise. And your children, and you'll be like a rock. That's theoretically, we've got to aim for that. And you're going to be human and you'll make mistakes. That's okay, they're human, that's okay. That's okay, we're normal, you know. We need our own internal practice, otherwise you go nuts. I can't imagine being a parent. It's intense practice. You've got to have your own space and your own practice and your own something internal to prepare you for it, you know. You have to have. Do you understand?
Thank you, Venerable.
Good, darling. It's wonderful. Thank you so much, Dawn. Thanks, sweetheart. Who else? Anybody? Really good talks, really good discussion points. Thank you so much. No one else? David, Betty's there, Katie, Matt, Adam, Judy, Claire, Mary.
Question.
Yes, sweetheart, talk to me. Who are you? Where are you?
I'm
sweetheart, talk to me.
Detroit.
Yeah.
So when we're in that moment, like I'm not a parent, but that doesn't mean that I don't have like daily hard practice of trying to like bring as much wisdom as I can,
Yes, of
and
course.
also have compassion.
Yes.
So what do we do? What's the best thing for us to do in those moments when we are put in a position that we know our wisdom isn't preparing us for?
Right.
What do we do?
Well, got to give an example, darling. Give me a simple scenario.
Let's
Just
see.
simple.
Like I have a friend who has this this pattern of if he's motivated by good feelings, he'll like break boundaries.
What do you mean, darling? I can't get it. What do you mean? Keep it simple.
Okay, so for example, like he was gonna come to my house and fix something for me.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
and so and I had told him on multiple occasions in the past, like, please, like, don't come early. Like, that
Okay.
just throws me off.
Okay.
And, you know, please, like, you know, like, knock and let me come to the door.
Good. Okay. So what does he do instead?
When he comes to the door, he comes early.
And he walks right in.
And he walks right in.
Okay. So what's the question?
And so my question is sort of like, in this place, like, I may sense that I don't have the wisdom.
Okay, you do. So let's just do. So what would be the way you when that last happened? Let's use it. How did you respond the last time this happened? How did you respond?
So he tried to open the door, but it was locked.
Okay. So what did you do?
He couldn't come in. And so because this has happened multiple.
No. What did you do? What did you say to him when he tried to get in the door?
Well.
What did you do? Did you open